Hello and welcome back. In this final part of the chapter, I'll be talking to you about population composition and population pyramids. So this is actually the graphical representation of the population that we have just studied, right? So and also taking into consideration the population changes, all right, catering to different groups. So we have talked about birth rate, we have talked about death rate, all right. So naturally, the different ages, okay, they have a certain number, right? So this graphical representation via pyramids can, aid in understanding how population is changing according to two very important categories, that is age and sex. Okay, so whether that particular individual is a male, whether that particular individual is a female, okay, sorry, and what is the age category of that particular individual. Okay, so whether that particular individual is an infant or it's an adolescent, he or she. Okay, so infant or adult or adolescent or an elderly person. Okay, so these two are the main determinants that that are taken into account when we are talking about population composition. This is actually, it refers to the structure of the population. It tells about the age, sex, literacy level, health condition, occupation, and income level of population. It talks about all of these factors. But in this particular part of the chapter, we will be focusing our discussion on population pyramids. And in this population pyramid, the two determinants that are taken into account are only age and sex. Okay. When you talk about population composition in a broader context, then you may also talk about other factors that are listed here, that are literacy level, the health condition of the individual, the occupation, the income level of population. So all of those factors that determine whether what kind of human resources that population has, all right, that population composition has, and whether it is aimed towards an advancement or whether it is just aiding into the increment of population, but not so much as not so much increment in terms of advancement or resources. Okay, so population pyramid, like I told you, is that graphical representation of two important parts of population composition: age versus sex. So this age is, taken, represented or illustrated across the percentage of population, and this percentage of population is divided imaginarily. On the left hand side we will be talking about the males, and on the right hand side we'll be talking about the females, right? So the shape of the population pyramid tells the story of the people living in that particular country. With this simple graph, you can determine what are the different numbers that are male, that are female, okay, and the age category is actually divided into groups. What groups? Groups such as 0 to 4 age, 5 to 9 age, 10 to 14 age, 15 to 19 age, going up to 80 to 84 and 84 plus as well. Okay, so different age groups are represented across the different percentage of population, that is male and sex. So the male and female. So the age and sex binary is taken into account when we are talking about population pyramid. Population pyramid is the graphical representation of the composition of population in a particular area. And what is population composition? It actually determines the structure of population. That could be age, sex, that could be literacy level, that could be health conditions, etc., etc. Okay. Then we will be taking three examples: Kenya, India, and Japan, so that you can understand how this pyramid functions. Okay. So the first example is of Kenya, where you see the age groups. They are represented across the percentage of male versus female population. Okay, so you can see that the base is broad as well as the top is gradually decreasing. This is actually indicating that the birth and death rates both are high. Death rates are high. That is why towards the top you're getting fewer and fewer people. Okay, because when people are dying, the graph would naturally decrease, right? Geographically representing means the higher the number of people, the longer the graph would be. Are you understanding? And as soon as and as much as people are dying, depending upon the age, depending upon also whether they are male or whether they are female, the graph would be decreasing. Okay, so with this you can easily determine that what kind of population change that particular area is witnessing. So in case of Kenya, if you remember, just in the previous part of the chapter, I had explained it to you that Kenya has a higher increase, has a higher rate of birth as well as death. Okay, so because both birth and death rates are increasing, the base is broad, right? Because the number of births is high, so the base would be broad. And since the number of deaths is also high, so the top, as we are moving towards the top, you're getting this triangular shape. Okay, because the death rate is increasing, so the number of population is decreasing. All right. So this is the example of Kenya. Then you have next India. Okay, so here the base is not as high, means as broad. So that is the population in terms of the birth rate is not as high as compared to Kenya. Okay, and as we are going upwards, we are also increasing. We are also witnessing that there is certain amount of increase in the death rate as well. But more or less, if you may see, the base is significantly broad, in this age category. So you can say 20s to 50s. Okay, so what does this imply? This implies that the youth in India is significantly higher. Younger people, they are not prone to deaths as much as other countries, as example Kenya, because we have just studied about Kenya, right? So this implies that India has the opportunity of training all the younger people as important assets of human resources. Remember, I am talking about population in terms of resources, so I will be referring to people like you and I, people in terms of resources. Okay, so we have to think about the important assets, be in terms of skills, be in terms of mindsets, knowledge or capabilities, important values that we can incorporate into those individuals, so that the rate of production, whatever the production would be, right, the human resources all over would increase, right? So what will this then lead to towards the advancement? So we have this opportunity, okay, because in countries such as India, death rates amongst the very young are decreasing. That is why you have the base is broad, okay, broader base, and the pyramid is broad. Therefore, in the younger age group, and because more infants survive to adulthood, so naturally, the you know the higher age groups, they are decreasing towards the top. Okay, so death rate is there because of course when you reach a certain age, um, you do embrace death, right? But the important thing to notice here is that the base is broader when you're taking into account of younger people, right? So the younger age group, the all those people who are in their you can say who have just reached their adulthood, and all those people who are in the middle ages. Okay, so that range of population is high, is and especially towards the adulthood area, that is actually very, very broad. So again, I'm repeating this, that we have the opportunity to actually use all of these assets into advancement of our country. Then let's talk about the population pyramid of Japan. In countries like Japan, low birth rates make the pyramid narrow at base. Okay, so this again is depending upon choice. All right. So what kind of choices people are indulging into, whether they are using a certain contraceptives, so that they are not you can say incorporating towards a population of a particular area, and what kind of also you can say rule a particular country has, whether it has the norms of just that a couple can only have one child, a couple can only have two child. So whether it is restricting that birth area, that is also a very important factor, right? So in Japan, a country like Japan, there is a low birth rate, and there is a low death rate also because of increase in better access to medications, better lifestyles. All right, all those technological advancements that we have been talking about. Because Japan is an advanced, developed country, so the birth rate is not very, decreasing gradually. That triangular shape is not, witnessed here, because although yes, people are dying as they're getting older, but they're not dying. That rate of, you can say, death is not as steep or as high as it was in the cases of India or Kenya. There is a decrease in birth rate, and there is also low birth rate in Japan, just like UK, right? So we have this kind of a shape here, okay, where there are, you can say, more people get the opportunity to reach the old age, right? And at one, you can say, one bright day, they can embrace death. Okay, so because of higher advancement, higher, better ways of life, there is a decrease in death rate, and because of their own choices, their own regulations, and so on and so forth, there is a low birth rate also. So this is the population pyramid of Japan, that differs very, very highly from India and Kenya. It does not has that have that, that typical triangular shape. Okay. Next, we'll be talking about, we will be actually discussing some questions, and with that, we will come towards the end of this chapter. Why are people considered a resource? So, when we are talking about human as resources, we have to take two things in account, that is quantity as well as capability of that particular individual, of that particular population, right? So, how many people are, responsible for a particular growth, for a particular production, for a means of livelihood, and what are the capabilities? Means what are the skills or the tool sets or the mindset, the technological, you can say, methodologies that they are using. Okay, the knowledge that they have. How are they using all of these into you can say, the processing of the natural or the man-made resources into that final product that we need, right? So I had given you the example of doctor at the very beginning of the chapter, right? That a doctor uses all that medical knowledge, and with the help of all that man-made resources as well as natural resources, a doctor is incorporating everything plus that his or her own individual capabilities, own individual skills and tool sets and everything, and incorporating that into what is the end goal. Depending on the kind of profession, it could be saving animals, it could be saving human life, it could be bringing people to life, helping in giving birth. Okay, so a different profession varies, and just as that, there will be different different types of teachers, different types of construction builders, different types of people who are using their particular skill sets, their particular methodologies, and aiding that towards the development of mankind. So here, that is why human is a very important resource asset, because if it was not for human, then how would we think of using that natural resource? Okay, and how can we even think of developing a man-made a resource, if we are not talking about human itself or himself or herself as a resource, right? So this is why people are considered a resource. Okay. What are the causes for the uneven distribution of population in the world? So there are two types of causes, broadly speaking: geographical, okay, and social or cultural or economic. I have already dealt this in very much details. I'll just summarizing this. Geographical, you have different, so depending upon the topography of an area, whether it is a plain land, whether it is a mountainous area. Okay, so the population naturally would be higher in low-lying plains. Okay, then water supply. So towards the low-lying plains, for example, towards the Ganges, right? You have the alluvial plains, right? Because there is the water, fresh resource of water supply. So of course, people would resort to live there instead of deserts, or instead of very hot or very cold areas, right? Then what kind of soil, whether it is fertile enough for agriculture or not, what kind of climate, whether it is temperate climate. People would resort to living in temperate climates as compared to very hot, as in the tropical, or very cold, as in the Arctic regions, right? Then minerals, because minerals are aiding towards a particular industrial growth. So people residing in Osaka, Mumbai, all these important industrial areas that we had talked about in the previous chapter, remember? So that in those areas there would be an increase in population, because that is actually giving people an opportunity of increasing their human resources, okay, or contributing towards it. Then social, cultural, and economic factor is also very, very important. Social factor has to be taken into account, because one has to think about housing, one has to think about education, better medical health, healthcare, etc. Then cultural significance is also important, because religious significance, spiritual significance, cultural significance is also taken into account, because places such as Varanasi or Kedarnath, like I gave you the example, people do actually resort to live there. Even though even though in places such as Kedarnath, the conditions of living, the topographical area is very, very different. But the cultural significance that is attached to that place is so high that people do go to live there. So there is a certain population residing. Economic factors, again, relating to the minerals part and everything that I have just talked about, because it will be actually aiding towards the human resources, or towards the increment of the human resources. So these are the different causes of the uneven distribution of population in the world. Then the population has grown very rapidly. Why? Because of population explosion. And why has this explosion occurred? This explosion has occurred because there is now a difference between the birth rate and the death rate. This is the minus sign. So the number of births per 1,000 people is actually more than the number of deaths per 1,000 people. So this difference is actually the reason why world population has grown. And another reason, which is also why this is witnessed, is that owing to advancement, better advancement, modern technologies, or better livelihoods, okay, better livelihoods, better, you can say, opportunities of attaining a livelihood, right? So these are the reasons why world population has grown very rapidly, and all of this is actually, in a nutshell, owing to modernity. Okay, then discuss the role of any two factors influencing population change. So there are two important factors that I just talked to you about: birth rate and death rate. These are the two factors that actually determine population change in a particular area. Birth rate is the number of births per 1,000 people, and your death rate is actually number of deaths per 1,000 people. So number of people dying, okay, in consideration to 1,000 people of that particular area. And the population is said to be increasing when the birth rate is higher than the death rate, and the difference between this birth rate and death rate is what we have, the natural population growth rate. Okay, then what is meant by population composition? So population composition is actually dividing the composition structurally. Okay, so you can say the structural, the description, the illustration of population according to various factors. What are the various factors? The two important factors, definitely, they are age, sex, but there are other factors as well, like literacy rate, like health of a particular individual, right? Like income, or occupation. So education, housing, all of the factors that we just talked about, they're actually structural determinants of a population composition. When we study about a population, you talk about all of these factors you can say in accounts of age, in accounts of sex, and in accounts of whether the education rate is high, literacy rate is high, whether the income or job opportunity is high, whether that place is witnessing a better medical healthcare system or not. So this is meant by population composition. Then finally, we have what are population pyramids and how do they help in understanding about the population of a country. So population pyramids are basically graphical representations of the composition or of the population composition of a particular area. You can just write simply of an area with respect to, I'm abbreviating it as WRT, with respect to two important factors. What are they? Age and sex. So different age groups and different the two sex group, the binary sex group, that is male and female. So population pyramids are actually the graphical representations of the population composition of an area with respect to or taking into account the age and sex, because the age is actually divided into different groups. Okay, and this put across or graphically represented across male and female, the number of population according to male and female. And how do they help in understanding of the population of a country? They do it because when you study that particular graph, you can actually determine whether there is an increase in the birth rate or whether there is an increase in the death rate or both or neither. So if you remember in the case of Kenya that we had studied, there was an increase in both birth and death rate. In the case of India, there was you can say the birth rate was much you can say the death rate actually was much lower, right? So death rate was lower, so that all the infants that were coming into the world are coming into the world are getting an opportunity to grow. So the youth and amongst the Indian population is very, very high. So we fortunately have the opportunity to actually inculcate that appropriate tool, the appropriate mindset in our youth, so that we can actually aid towards our human resources and towards advancement, technology, modernity, etc. And in the case of UK or in the case of Japan, we had seen that there is a lesser amount of birth rate as well as lesser amount of death rate. So that is because of choices, the different technological advancement, because both of these countries are developed. So this is how population of a country could actually be very, very easily understood by studying our population pyramid. So with this question, we come towards the end of this chapter, where we talked about human beings as very important assets, resources, and if it were not for humans, then we wouldn't be actually talking about other resources as well, because it is humans ultimately that are actually involved in processing all these resources into an end product, okay, that is actually making our lives easier. All right, in the next part, the final part, I'll be taking you through a quick revision, highlighting the important points, summarizing the important points. So thank you till here.